fantastic start to your last week of 2021. See you later, 21. Nice knowing you. Anyway, I'm doing a bit of an open chat tonight, so if you've got questions, hopefully I've got an answer for you. Pulling up the HP Tuners software for you guys, in case you have something specific about tuning or anything like that, that I can hopefully answer that question for you, and hopefully the AC works, because down here in beautiful Southeast Texas, it is hot, muggy, feels like spring. Trees are going nuts. I'm sweating. So anyway, getting everything fired up and running. All right. I think we got this going on. Michael Corleone in the house with the flex. I like it. Sean saying, what up, Mr. Mopar? Also flexing up. Everything's good. You know, last time we had the chat, it's kind of an exciting chat because we were really focusing in on, well, direct connection right here, okay? And the funny thing about it is, in looking at the catalog a little bit further, the further and further away you can see that Mopar will probably be from supporting the NA guys. If you had a chance to log on to that show, I was trying to show basically screenshots of the catalog, best way I can do it with the Zero editing software that I roll with. And it was interesting that the only camshaft that was offered was the comp cams. Basically, it's a Gen 3 Stage 2 cam for late model stuff, you know, the VVT cams. A cam that I know for a fact would work fairly well for a 392 and would work actually really well for a 5.7. But aside from that, you know, the usual suspects were copping in, exhaust options, things like that. You know, the funny thing is that there really wasn't much in there to talk about for the NA guys. And as a matter of fact, that silence, if you will, was probably the most deafening thing about the chat. And I had gone through, you know, kind of give you guys like a peek behind the curtain, so to speak. When I was going through that catalog, I was really debating on even doing the live chat based around the direct connection catalog, because, well, it's so heavily weighted to the drag pack, number one. Number two, it's so heavily weighted to the Hellcat guys. But more to the point, it's really heavily weighted towards the Red Eye guys. So let me kind of walk you through what was going through my head before I even went live with that chat. So I'm looking at a Mopar Performance catalog, our direct connection catalog, and I'm seeing 100,000, 100 and whatever the number it is, plus 1,000 for a drag pack. Kits and added features for cars that are cresting $85,000. A minor mention to the Hellcat, that's going to set you back at least $65,000 to $69,000. But absolutely nothing for the grassroots NA guy. And I was a little bit upset about that, because that was something that I was kind of hoping for. You know, it didn't have to be necessarily, you know, a blower kit for your 6.4, or, you know, look at what we're doing for your 5.7 guys. It was so truncated in its approach. And listen, I understand why. I mean, there's a lot of legalese that comes with these modifications. I get it. Not to mention the fact that a lot of these dealerships, the shop that's there, if you want to call it that, their service department, it's not really set up as a performance shop. You have to be able to set expectations. You have to be able to guarantee, if you will, certain results. And you just simply can't do that necessarily with the NA stuff, well, with cams anyway. And certainly you can't do that and send it out into the world and have it be emissions compliant. There is a whole litany of tests that you have to pass and then turn in and have approved by the EPA to allow for those parts to be, well, certified and legal. The Hellcat stuff is easy. I mean, you just throw more boost at something and you just change a few parameters in the tune, you know, doctor up a couple of tables just to accommodate the extra boost, maybe play around with some timing tables and fueling to get a little bit more power out of it, but it doesn't affect the emissions of the thing. It just won't. It can't. And so because of that, I understand why the Hellcat variants were such low-hanging fruit for them to basically offer up as direct connection. The thing that bothered me the most is how heavily they weighted the red eye, but again, I understand why. You know, twin pumps, bigger supercharger, it's just kind of easier, right, to play around with calibrations and send the thing off into the world and have it work. Hellcat, maybe not so much. Also, Hellcat, being the little brother, if you will, to the red eye, is kind of notorious for putting a hurting on the red eye in general. So, you know, with a couple of augmentations, you know, a little nip, a little tuck, and a couple of red eye parts just to round the whole package out, they can be pretty nasty. So I get, you know, kind of a weighted average being thrown at the red eye, not to mention the cost of the upgrades as a percentage of the cost of the car is far less for the red eye. So again, low-hanging fruit. And that's an area where the guy's already spending a lot of money. What's an extra $3,000? Have at it, go for it. And now he's got himself a factory-built hot rod. Neat, right? But I guess what a lot of the NA guys were really hoping for was something like rear gear offerings, calibration changes, something along those lines. Camshafts were a pipe dream. The 426 stroker, I mean, you can do that through the aftermarket. And I just don't see Mopar going that far out of their way to offer up that bottom end when the aftermarket's doing a really good job of it already. So basically, guys, if you want a 426, you got one of two options. Either put a Elephant engine in whatever contraption sitting in your garage, or, well, just buy the stroker kit and build your own. Hey, hold on a second here. Catalyst, thank you very much, buddy. Saying, just saw the jailbreak options on the Dodge. Very cool, but isn't the mix and match trim option something that should have been standard? Funny you should mention that, because coming into this, I didn't understand what the jailbreak was supposed to be. I was left a little bit curious. Maybe the marketing didn't quite get to me, but what I didn't understand about the jailbreak was, what is it? First of all, what I found about the jailbreak that was weird was that I could get the fender and the side livery on the jailbreak, but I couldn't get it on a red eye. Strange. But I couldn't get, when I was playing with the build your own, I couldn't do the blackout option, which would be not the blackout, but the hood, the roof, and the trunk blackout, and get the livery on the sides. I thought that was kind of strange. The rest of the options for the jailbreak, I mean, it's kind of neat that you can get different calipers, I guess. Colors of calipers, I should say. But what I found curious about the jailbreak is that I couldn't option lightweight brakes. In other words, I couldn't option the super stock brake package on the jailbreak. And the weird thing about it also is that you couldn't option the optional computer with the jailbreak that you can with the super stock. So you know, when you start to look at it, it was confusing to me. In other words, why am I optioning a Jailbreak when I could option a super stock? Aside from brake caliper color, but I mean, I can get black brake calipers with my super stock or with a regular red eye. So again, I was just trying to get a feel and a figuring out for what exactly the jailbreak package really was. And I guess if you're going for the ultimate in customizability, that's the way to go. But I was just, like I say, I'm still having a little bit of a hard time understanding what the options really are for the Jailbreak. I mean, my idea of the Jailbreak was that the entire catalog would have been open, but that would also involve super stock parts, and I just don't see them actually getting there. Another neat thing about the Jailbreak package would have been, okay, well, we're going to offer Demon software options, something along that lines. And there wasn't anything like that at all. So again, I was left a little bit confused by the process, but something to consider. But good question on that. Catalyst, you and I thinking the exact same way. I had the same thoughts. Michael Groves, hey, what's up? Got the flex, I like it. Gary Payne saying hello, everybody. Cody's in saying, I think a 309 gear should have been standard on the RT trims because that 262 is not the move. So funny you again should mention that as well. That was something that I couldn't, and I haven't done it. What I wanted to do was go into the RTs and see if I could option. I mean, can you option a limited slip 309 for an RT? Kind of a funny thing, really, when you think about it, because you should be able to. And that alone would be a big bump, at least for a lot of guys in performance. But yeah, the 262 with a 5.7, I don't know. It's a bit of a sting, especially when you consider that the 5.7 itself is neutered. Add to that neutered gearing, makes for kind of a frustrating situation if you are an RT guy. If you are a 5.7 fan and you're like, look, I don't need the 392. That 392 is really not for me. Just give me a 5.7. It's basically 375 horsepower, 400 pound-feet of torque, a little bit of gearing, and it's a fun, usable car on the street. It's a mid 13-second car, and don't let anybody ever tell you that that's slow. That's the other thing. Yeah, they had options for the 5.7 in the catalog, but it was mainly just, in minor exhaust bumps and really nothing all that major. I was hoping they would have something a little bit more aggressive for the 5.7 guys at least, but I don't know. Kobe's in saying, hey, got the flex in, I like it. Michael's saying the Jailbreak was marketing in pretty colors. Let's see. Kobe's saying he got a Draggy for Christmas and can only hit a 12-12 on the street with street tires. I need better street tires. So the thing is that the Draggy is a lot of fun. In fact, mine's sitting on the shelf right behind me over here. I absolutely love my Draggy. I have had more fun. Here's the funny thing. So I have had more fun with the Draggy in Sierra in my 72 3/4 ton truck. I have had more fun with the Draggy in that thing than I have had really with it doing anything else. I really like having it for going to the drag strip and being able to, kind of have not only Draggy footage, but the ride-along footage as well to post up. And it's kind of neat because it does all of its own editing as you're cruising down the track. But the fun thing about the Draggy is that it is real consistent, at least it has been for me at the drag strip, being 0.03 of a second actually slower than what I was showing at the drag strip. And so I put that thing in the truck and just take it out and have a blast with it. And the fun thing about having a truck like Sierra is that, you know, it's a mid 15-second truck on a good day, and it does it with a lot of fanfare on the launch. So, you know, it's just lighting up the tires and having fun and being a dumb kid. And, you know, you can't really get in trouble when you're only going like 87 or 85 or whatever it is. I think it was 87 or 88 miles an hour at the end of the quarter mile. So, you know, 1550 at 88 is not going to get you into too much trouble. But it's a lot of fun, and, you know, it's just something. It's just because when you're playing, the numbers don't matter. It's just, can you get better than the number? So, I don't know. I've had a lot of fun with mine. Cody saying, I get that it's for economy reasons, but it's already choked as it is. Yeah, it kind of is. And, you know, I don't really know how much economy you get with the 262 versus the 309. Like, how much better would it be in a 5.7? Man, I don't know. I can tell you this, though, in the Hellcat, where the Hellcat comes with a 262, on the freeway, I believe with a 262, I would average like 25 miles per gallon if I was taking it fairly easy, you know, like around 70, 75 miles an hour. I think it would lock in like 23 or 25. With the 309 gear, I get 21 to 23. So there's a slight difference there, but not really a whole lot. I'll tell you what, I would way rather have the 309 than the 1 or 2 miles per gallon that you may lose or not lose. EG Performance saying, what's up? What's up, EG? So, anyway, I found it kind of curious. We're going over the direct connection stuff. Yeah, I get there was a lot of guys that were really, I think, hoping more for an NA focused direct connection. And, you know, that was, you know, direct connection focused on small blocks back in the day. They had a lot of focus on big blocks too. You know, the B block, the RB block, in other words, the 383, the 440, the 426, 413, 426 wedge. All of that stuff would have been supported by direct connection in some way, shape, or form back then. And I get it. Look, you know, look, decent first effort, right? I mean, you got to give credit where it's due. Obviously, they are going to go after some low-hanging fruit when it comes to the performance mods, what they can get away with, what's easy to get approved through the EPA. That's a big part about what you're looking at with these packages, is that back in 1974, it wasn't like you had to worry so much about compliance and things like that. It just really wasn't as much of a thing. And besides, nobody was really checking cars like that back then. Fast forward, I don't know, about 45 years, and next thing you know, you've got, you know, all this computer controlled stuff that is really difficult to get. It's really difficult to put something together naturally aspirated that will make a whole lot more power than what these engines are making, and especially make that power over such a broad RPM range. There are some economies of scale that come into play here, especially with the 5.7s, and 6.4s and Hellcats. Really, all of them, they make a boatload of these combinations. So what you have to remember is the guys that are going to be building these cars up, a lot of these guys are going to be dailying these things. I mean, it's not like you're just building a bracket racer like what we were showing in the direct connection catalog. A lot of these guys are dailying their cars and getting something to pass emissions with a big choppy cam and a set of long tube headers with catalytic converters. It's going to be really difficult. Chuck, thank you very much, buddy. Saying good evening, everyone. My question for Professor B is, can you store summer tires in cold storage? Do the resins dry up inside? Define cold storage. So perfect that you should ask this question. I will be bringing my drag radials and everything into the shop we're about to have a cold snap, and you really don't want to have them exposed to temperatures below about 40 degrees for more than about 48 to 72 hours. They can start to crack. So any tire that is rated at summer tires, you can still get away with them because typically they'll have a wear rating of around 300. But as a rule, any tire that's rated for, say has a wear rating of 200 or less, you don't want to have exposed to cold temperatures for extended periods of time. If they have a wear rating of 100, you definitely want to bring those in and not have them go below 45 to 50 degrees if possible. And of course, anything with a 0, you want to make sure those stay relatively warm. They will start to crack if exposed for any real length of time, and what can happen is it's not necessarily that the tire is ruined if it gets exposed to the cold temperatures. It's just for how long. And sometimes you can bring them back to life with a really good burnout. Other times you cannot. And it's better to err on the side of caution with your tires and just go ahead and bring them in. The shop, the office area, this is all heated and cooled, so I don't have to worry too much about that. But you know, for example, if you've got a set of ET Street SS's, I probably wouldn't have those tires get exposed to temperatures below 45 degrees for more than, say, a week at a time. What can happen is it may not even hurt the coefficient of friction, but the first couple of burnouts you can remove more material than you normally would. I have actually had a set of ET Street R's that were never used, but they were kept outside and had been exposed to some pretty cold temperatures, and their service life was severely cut down. Those tires, you know, you figure you might get 60 to 70 passes with a tire like that. In this case, those tires, I believe the run count was like in the mid 30s. So again, those are some of the drawbacks to leaving the tires exposed. So again, rule of thumb, slicks, don't let them get cold at all if you can help it. Anything with a wear rating of 100, I would say a day or two probably wouldn't hurt them at, say, 40 degrees, 35 degrees, but you certainly would not ever want to let them go for any longer than that. Again, you know, 48 hours at the most, 200, maybe 3 to 4 days at the most, but no more than that. But awesome question, and it's very appropriate because I'm going to be bringing mine in. We're about to have a cold snap down here, so the one that we're going to have probably all year. Catalyst, good question, saying if I could create the Hellcat over again, what would I do differently? First thing I would do is every Hellcat would have a 309 gear, or at least a 309 gear as an option. The second thing that I would do with the Hellcat is I would do something about the idler pulleys that end up looking like boat anchors after, I don't know, 6 days worth of ownership. I would, for the manual guys, figure out a way to have a 266 or a 272 first gear in the Tremec transmission. That would liven the car up quite a bit, and you know, having a 228 first gear just makes that car real lazy out of the hole. Aside from that, I would make sure that the Uconnect was reverse upgradable. You know, in other words, have upgrades to the Uconnect, like a rolling, not free. I mean, I'd make sure that there was, you know, create a profit center out of different upgrades to the Uconnect system, different skins, different be able to have it upgraded with, like, like for example, like the new onboard dyno or whatever, just the different fonts and the different screen layouts. I'd have something like that go as well. I would probably not change anything about the engine itself. It's incredibly stout. Guys, in fact, I was scrolling through some pictures and I found the picture of the cooked catalytic converter, aftermarket catalytic converter, and that was of a car that convinced me to get a Hellcat at some point. That car had been, it was a metal substrate catalytic converter, and it had melted. It had, oh God, the story behind this car. Anyway, I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but this is the car, the abuse, just the misuse and everything else that this car took. That's the car that got me into Hellcat. So, I mean, it was just proven to me just how durable that engine is. But, and the HP90 transmission as well. The one thing, if I didn't get my way with anything else, the one thing that I would make damn sure of with the Hellcat is that it would be a flex fuel vehicle, that you could run it on E85 and make it to where it is a sensed E85 system, the way that GM does theirs. There's no excuse for that combination to not be able to be a flex fuel vehicle. So, option the 309 gear, double pump it, make it to where it can be an E85 compatible vehicle. The skins for the gadgets and gizmos on the interior, and that would pretty well round things out. Things like cold air intakes or, different hoods and all of that stuff, that could come and that could evolve in time, but, think the Demon or the dual snorkel setup, all that is cool, but you wouldn't necessarily need to have that on the front end of this. Just make it to where it works the way that a lot of guys have made them work in the aftermarket, and to be pretty well off. Obviously, the drive shaft is something to consider, maybe the half shafts, but the main thing is just to try to maintain the durability and have a car that could really take advantage of the asset that is out there known as E85. So that would be a big one for me. Owen saying, welcome people to the greatest Mopar show on earth. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. E.G. saying, Mr. Mason is the real deal. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. And again, Chuck, thank you, buddy. Cubby's asking, do you know if they unlock your PCM with direct connection? And if they do, can anyone in your car after that? Or can anyone tune your car after that? No, they don't. So what they do is, without getting too technical, the dealership, the manufacturer can go into your computer and they can decrypt it. Instead of, it's encrypted from the factory, they can basically say, hey, computer, it's me. And the computer goes, oh, okay, you can do whatever you want. The way that you physically unlock the computer is different than unlocking it through the CAN bus. So, no, and the idea is that you would not have, my understanding of it anyways, that you would not have a P1400 code. So you have a situation where you just go in, like it'd be the same if they did an update. Like let's say, for example, there's a recall on the car and they need to go in and raise catalytic converter temperature thresholds. You would have to have HP Tuner software and an unlocked computer, and I'm saying HP Tuner software, Diablo or whoever, but you would have to have tuning software and an unlocked computer for me to go in and make a change like that. In other words, it's not an emissions thing. You're just raising the threshold of a catalytic converter, or you're changing fan settings or something like that. Yeah, you would have to have an unlocked computer to do that, which even though you're not changing anything in the engine calibration that would affect emissions, it would still throw a P1400 code. In that case, with the dealership doing their unlock and their changes, that patch would not have a P1400 code attached to it. The P1400 states, and I'll tell you exactly what it states right here, just for you guys that aren't aware of, it's a diagnostic trouble code, and it is, I'll let you see what I'm talking about, and this is in my tune, and you can see that I'm still showing it because my car is out of warranty. They're still showing SES enable. Actually, there's not a description on this one. Interesting. No description. I always thought this one had a description on it. Anyway, I am still showing it active. By the way, turning it off doesn't turn it off. It just means that it doesn't show up as a current code. It will still show up as a permanent code. But anyway, no, it won't throw a 1400. Shouldn't. Make sure I didn't pass anybody up. Oh, Mike's saying, Cody, look at the Cooper Xenon. Oh, GSX-3s. Are those the Coopers? Are those the ones where they only have them up to like 19-inch wheels or something like that? I think because Cooper has some new tire, and I was kind of stoked by it, but they only go up to 19-inch wheels. Cody's saying it would be cool if they made a Charger Demon. They kind of did with the Demon Red Eye. I think the reason why they didn't mess with a Charger Demon necessarily was that I think the weight issue there was going to be a little bit too much for them to overcome in terms of, I don't know, component durability. I mean, let's look at what happened to all the rear ends in the Demons. But no, it would have been cool if they had something going on like that, but maybe it's just easier to make a rear seat delete for a Challenger. Callis is saying, I just scrolled through the direct connection catalog. Like you said, not much for the NA guys. Thinking about picking up a 1320 to go along with the Hellcat in the barn. Dude, I'm telling you, 1320, I'm not going to say that you're going to sell your Hellcat the minute you bring that 1320 home. But here's what I will tell you. You will find yourself driving that 1320 a lot more than you think. I mean, you guys know the story with me and Ray and his first 1320. One of the most fun times I ever had in a car was me and him in the 1320. And of course, it was in my favorite current color. If I were to get a brand new one, the Frostbite Blue would be at the top of the list. That Gold Rush, man, I love that color. Anyway, the thing is that car is so much fun, not only on the drag strip. Yeah, they're fun on the drag strip, but dude, on the street, God, those things are a lot of fun. And you find a stretch of road and a buddy, and it's just a riot to see who can cover a 12.1 or a 12.2 with that thing on the street. So anyway, they're just so snappy. The new operating system with mainly with 18 and up, but the 19 and up cars is really, really good. And man, I just can't say enough good things about it. So I'm not going to say that if I had it to do all over again, I'd get a 1320. One of the things I like about the NA cars is that they just feel lighter, just in general. And there's something to be said when you don't have an extra 150 pounds or whatever worth of weight sitting right out in front of your feet. So, yeah, there is a difference in how they handle, but man, the 1320 is sweet as a nut. So if you end up getting one, like I say, I'm not going to say you're going to sell your Hellcat just so you can drive your 1320 around, but what I will say is that 1320 is going to grow on you in a way that the Hellcat won't. Yeah, I'll put it to you like this. It will remind you what fun is. And if you're out playing around in the car, as a trainer, okay, I know that sounds, I don't want to be condescending, but I'll tell you this, in the 2 hours or so give or take, that Ray and I were playing with his car on the street, it was a lot like having a training session, like with throttle control, getting the Nexans to bite at factory pressure at 32 psi. Getting the Nexans to bite was tough. I mean, between the two of us, we would run identical numbers, bam, 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 and then he'd get me 2 in a row. Or we go bam, 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 and I'd get him 2 out of 3. You know, it was funny just how tight we were, but how close, and how just with throttle control, how just precise you had to be with that thing on the street. But it'll teach you throttle control, and it'll teach you a little bit of finesse, and it's just so damn much fun. I mean, I can't really put it into words. With as prevalent as roll racing is, and again, this is something I can't say anything against, because I was big into it for a long time. But one of the issues that I always had with roll racing was, by the time things got really fun and interesting, you were going obnoxiously fast. You know, 150, 170, 190. These are the numbers that you start to collect once you start going up and up and up in power. Anything that happens below some of those mile per hours, it's all traction limited. So when you have a car that is traction limited from a dig, but it comes with a set of tires that if you practice enough with it, you can kind of get it to hook at factory pressure, which, by the way, the whole idea, the whole premise when we took the car out that night, it had just rolled over 500 miles. And the idea was we were trying to run, hopefully, a 12.1 or a 12.0 with the car as delivered. But you got to remember, I'm over 200 pounds. Ray was over 200 pounds. The car is running with a full tank of gas, and we're running the thing on the street at full pressure on tire pressure the car was literally as delivered. So let's just say the odds were stacked against us, but we did end up running a string of 12.2s. I think he eventually got a 12.1 out of it. So he got me for the night, but well deserved and well done. But it was just a lot of fun, a whole lot of fun. I would say, show some love, hit the like button. Yes, hit the like button. Like, subscribe, share, ring the bell, do all that stuff. Michael's saying his are 20-inch. Yep. Oh, let's see. Michael's saying I'm running 245 40 R20s on the front and 305 35s on the rear. Good combination. Gary's saying, would have loved a 1320, but only comes in auto. My M6 is a lot of fun at track and just driving. They are a lot of fun. Cody's checking out. He's saying, I got to go to work early. Car parts aren't cheap. No kidding. I know. I've got a meeting. Let's see, tomorrow's Wednesday. I've got a meeting first thing in the morning. And so, yeah, that'll be a treat. Riff's saying, hey, what's up? What's up, Riff? So, but yeah, in terms of combinations that are out there, you know, any of the 392 combinations can be a whole lot of fun. And really with the Mopars, here's the funny thing. You know, you get wrapped up, especially if you get sucked down some YouTube rabbit hole with, you know, 1, 2, 3, and then, you know, somebody, you know, jumps on a leave, and, you know, rarely do the races end up with both guys hitting the throttle at the same time. But it doesn't really matter. The Mopars, that's not their wheelhouse. It just isn't. And what's funny is that when it comes to those types of videos, how many guys will take what they see as, well, that's just how it is, like in the real world. And I was watching one, it was a Z06 versus somebody's tuned Hellcat or whatever, and the thing is, it's like a C7 Z06. Obviously, it's one of my all-time favorite cars to drive. If I didn't have my Hellcat, that would be the car that I would have. It's just such a cool car. And again, just such a great car to drive. And this kid in the Hellcat, like, he just was a half a step behind, and it never really went as well as it should have for the Hellcat in this thing. And I was going, oh my God. I'm just reminded of a guy that has a C7 Z06 8-speed automatic car that on ET Street R's, his car is tuned and pulleyed. Not real aggressive though. It's still a 93 octane combination. So street combination, legitimate, solid street car. All right, we're not talking about itty bitty pulleys or a lot of other nonsense. Just a good solid 93 octane car. With a pulley though, my car doesn't have aftermarket pulleys, it's still running stock boost. His car and my car are practically identical going down the quarter mile. If I run 132 miles an hour, that vet will run 132 and a half. If I run a 10.50, that vet will run a 10.54. It's almost like clockwork. Whoever gets off first wins. And so I watch a lot of these videos and I'm going, I don't really believe what I'm seeing. It's not really the right venue anyway, but it's kind of interesting. And I guess where I'm going with this is the Mopars do really well on the drag strip. And by the way, if you haven't logged into your Dodge Garage and set up your account, go ahead and get that done so you can get on the leaderboard. There are a lot of guys getting on there, a lot of 9-second Hellcats. I haven't really had a chance to peruse it too much, but I am on there. I think I posted up a 10 and a quarter pass, a 10.25 ET pass. I need to get some. Hold on a second. Let me see something here. I'm actually going to be posting some of my 10 teen passes from last year. I just didn't have my slips, but here's one of them when it went 10-18 at 100, almost 135. That's coming through. Anyway, I'll be posting those up on there. So be on the lookout on the Dodge Garage. You will see your buddy B Mason on there. I am B Mason in the Mopar Garage, and I will be posting these bad boys up. So be on the lookout for that. Hey Chuck, thanks buddy. Saying on your recommendation, B, running the 275s and my RT Plus shaker plus pedal commander have made a difference. Sweet. With my 6-speed Tremec 13-second car now. Very cool, man. Love hearing that. That's one of my favorite combinations. So the 275s on an RT shaker with a manual transmission. Here's where that car really is a lot of fun. You've got an aggressive first gear. You've got good gearing out back. The car is just a lot of fun to drive. And the way that I see the RT shaker with a 6-speed, it really is very easy to relate that car with cars of the golden era. You've got a legitimate 375 horsepower engine. And when I say legitimate, that's an SAE rating. That engine on an engine dyno is about 400 horsepower. In other words, if you were to rate that engine the way that they rated the engines back in the day, that would come out to, I think it's really closer to like 390 or 400, and about 415 torque. So, I mean, it's in there with the old school hot rods, and it's just a fun car. So, but yeah, the 275s, dude, those things look awesome on those wheels. They look the part, they hook, they do everything that you need. So, Definitely fun, no doubt. And Chuck says, and it sounds badass. Yeah, they do. 5.7s sound really good when they're uncorked. I tell you what, Mild Truck sounded real good. But very cool, very cool. And that pedal commander is going to be a lot of fun for you too. And I think you've probably already been playing with it a lot. But one of the things I really liked to do with my pedal commanders that I've had is, yeah, you can ramp them up and make them more aggressive, but you can also chill them out a little bit. Like say you're stuck in traffic, you know, you can just make it to where you got a little bit more pedal throw to them in eco mode, and it'll make the car just not as jerky, just kind of chills everything out a little bit. So definitely a fun, very fun package. Kamal saying, B, would you kindly talk about back pressure if it's needed in your Mopar engines? It's not needed in any engines. So back pressure is always a very bad thing. And what people mistake back pressure for is you're thinking of a smaller diameter pipe, for example, which is to say, let's say a smaller diameter header primary, or a smaller diameter exhaust pipe in general. Exhaust back pressure for a naturally aspirated engine is never a good thing. What you're looking for is adequate or proper scavenging. When it comes to a turbocharged engine combination, any type of restriction after the exhaust wheel is not a good thing. For supercharged applications, the funny thing about them is that positive displacement superchargers, or really, or any forced induction for that matter, that is your scavenger pump. So the way that I've explained it to guys, you know, when I'm basically going over exhaust scavenging, camshaft theory, and how everything works together, especially with supercharged applications, is when you have a supercharger, any type of compressor on the top of your engine, bolted to the side of your engine or whatever, at about 1 psi, give or take, and some are a little bit more, some are a little bit less, depending on combustion chamber design. When you have positive combustion chamber pressure, you will evacuate the cylinder of all exhaust, period. Whereas if you do not have that scavenger pump, you are going to rely on primary and secondary pulses and waves to evacuate the cylinder properly. It also helps to drag air into the cylinder, creating a stacking effect on the intake valve itself. As the air is sucked through, it is going to stack the air through velocity stacking. That being said, any type of back pressure is bad. What you're looking for is flow. What you're looking for primarily, though, is not a flow number. You're looking for a flow change. You're looking for a pressure delta. So, for example, if you have a very long runner, just like if you have a really long intake runner, same principle applies. A very long exhaust collector, that pulse is going to take longer to get through that pipe, to get to the actual collector itself. At higher RPM, that can create its own flow restriction. Shorter the runner, the higher the RPM that it's going to favor in terms of torque production. The longer the runner, the lower it's going to favor torque production. All of that has to do with cam timing and everything else. You can adjust cam timing, and not really adjust it. You can grind cam timing for certain scenarios, although you would really never put a cam together for an exhaust. Anyway, long story short, if you have a restrictive exhaust system, you can actually crack open the exhaust valve earlier, and this could be because of packaging. You just run more exhaust duration and give more actual clock time for the cylinder to evacuate through pressure, and that will actually have a longer hit on the pulse scavenging, which will help higher RPM. There's a lot of tricks you can do. You start getting some of that, you know, what used to be called that black magic for the cam profiles. But anyway, back pressure, no. But I don't want you to mistake flow for back pressure. In other words, if something just flat out flows more. A lot of times it doesn't have much to do with that. It has to do with the actual primary diameter, which will dictate the velocity that's going through that pipe. Just remember, the larger the pipe, the slower the velocity. The smaller the pipe, the greater the velocity. So again, greater velocity, it's going to help low RPM. Lower velocity is actually going to help higher RPM, because as RPM increases, that what you would consider back pressure, that pulsing becomes equal at the higher RPM, because there is more volume taking up a larger volume pipe as opposed to a smaller volume taking up a smaller volume pipe when the engine is not demanding as much airflow. Could be because of cam timing, RPM, or both. See what I mean? There's a lot to it. You almost have to go through this like step by step by step. The best way I can explain back pressure to you, and I'll put that in air quotes again, is have the right size primaries for your application. In other words, let's say you've got, and this is basically, this is universal, okay? If you have a 400 horsepower engine, which is kind of what all of us are working with these days, a 1 3/4 inch header is perfectly fine. Could be a shorty, could be a long tube, doesn't really matter. Don't worry about primary length or anything like that. All of that's going to be dictated by the package that you're putting it in. It's never going to be dyno ideal because you're putting it into a car. That's why dynos are kind of unrealistic, but it sets a baseline. Anything above 475 horsepower or so, 1 7/8 headers is where you want to be. And this is naturally aspirated, by the way. Anything above 550 horsepower, maybe getting into 600 horsepower, you might start looking at a 2-inch header, but 1 7/8 will pretty much cover you for the rest of anything that you're going to worry about. Again, this is in naturally aspirated form. You start getting into forced induction, you really don't have to worry about it so much, because again, you got this big scavenger pump, especially with a Hellcat. You've got a big scavenger pump sitting right on top of that engine. Turbos, things like that don't really come into play here because you just have the big downpipe for the turbo. So put the biggest downpipe that you can effectively package onto the vehicle with that. And again, you know, you could look at a turbo application as potentially dealing with back pressure. One thing I will tell you is, don't get in the habit of, you know, then you start getting in the habit of, what about X pipe versus H pipe? In my testing, I did a lot of R&D on exhaust. So this is kind of up my alley, even though I kind of get a little bit fragmented when I start talking about it, because there's so many different directions you can go. But let me try to condense it for you as best I can. Anyway, I gave you the primaries. Again, it doesn't matter if it's shorties or long tube. That is going to be completely dictated by packaging. Don't worry about power when it comes to that stuff. There are differences that you can find, but remember that these are sequential port fuel-injected engines that aren't really relying so much on scavenging in terms of pulling fuel through a carburetor. That's where long tube headers really do get important, is if you're in a carbureted application. None of these cars are carbureted, so they don't affect fuel delivery per cylinder the way that they would if it was carbureted. So don't worry about power production. Long tubes are better for making bottom end torque. If you can get away with long tubes, they're always better because you'll have better drivability down low, and at tip in, partial throttle response will always be better with long tubes. Outright power production, a lot of times, more often than you might think, will favor short tube headers, mainly because there's a bigger pressure delta out the collector. But just know that that can happen. It's minuscule though at the very tip top. Don't worry again about power here. But when you're talking about X pipes versus H pipes, if you run an X pipe, do not run a chambered muffler with it. You can run them with a Y pipe, but not with an X pipe. In my testing, X pipes were awesome with flow-through mufflers like a MagnaFlow or what comes stock on a Hellcat or a Scat Pack. Where they would run into a problem is with chambered mufflers. And the problem you would get there was that reversion of the pulses hitting the chambers would actually stack. And the problem is X-pipe, you get some flow through the X, and that was causing potentially some issues. Long story short with this, best combination, X-pipe with flow through, H-pipe with pick whatever you want. And the positioning of that X or the H, don't worry about it. Just put it somewhere before the mufflers. If you can get away with it, put one before the catalytic converters and one after the catalytic converters, kind of like the way that Mercedes does. Because it helps to share pulses, and it basically makes your catalytic converters, the engine doesn't even know you have catalytic converters there in terms of, just pressure and flow. But what I'm trying to tell you is H-pipes will work just fine with chambered or open. It just seems like that X-pipes, I would see a loss of power like with a 40 series Flowmaster with an X-pipe versus a MagnaFlow muffler, and I wouldn't see the power drop with an H-pipe. And this is on an engine that was making about 300 or so horsepower to the rear wheels. So anyway, hopefully that answers your question. I know it's a little bit hard to explain in just one like hamburger size, bite-sized chunk for you, but in general, it's not back pressure that we're talking about. Because think about it, if back pressure were good for your car, you would have restrictors in the exhaust. You would be physically trying to reduce flow to create back pressure. It does not work like that. Again, it's actual velocity and tuning the velocity of the exhaust system to work with your the RPM range of your intake manifold and your camshaft and the events that come with it. So hopefully, I know that doesn't answer your question very well, but hopefully it explains a little bit of the difference in back pressure and also gives you an idea for what works and what doesn't. The good thing is you don't have to really, the main thing is don't overthink it. Get what fits in your car. It will be better than what came in it from the factory normally. Gary, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate that a lot. Say no question today, New Year's drink on me, my man. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that very much, and I will put that to very good use, as a matter of fact. Bro, thank you, man. Cheers. But thank you so very much, man. Very cool. But yeah, come on, man. Hopefully that answered your question. And New Year's drink, man. I don't know. Let me think, Gary. I'm gonna have to go with, I don't know. Probably be a Scotch, more than likely. Oh, Cal's saying, Mopar wish list, bring back Jazz Blues, Sublime, and Plum Crazy. Jazz Blues is a good looking color. And again, thank you, Chuck. Oh, Rick is saying, have always used Mickey Thompson ET Street SS 305, 3520 as dailies. Probably be getting a set of those coming in next year. Thinking about going with the Nitto Tri-5 315, 3520 just to get a bit wider tire, but Mickey Thompson always seems to be a bit stickier. Is it worth going with the 315 Nittos or over the Mickey 305s just for a little bit of extra width? Well, shoot. First of all, the Nitto 305 3520 is practically a small 315. So just know that coming into it. I am not going to say that you will be impressed with the Nitto from a traction point of view. It may or may not hook as well as your smaller Mickey based on the tire compound itself. Mickeys are a little bit stickier than the Nittos. Now, with that being said, I'm not going to ever complain about the Nitto as a tire in general. It is my opinion that the Nitto, whether it's 305 or 315, that 315 is going to be pretty wide. You're looking at the way that it fits, I believe, would fit based on the 305s that I have, is it's going to fit a little bit wider than what a normal 315 maybe would fit like. But that's fine. I mean, if that's what you're going for, just kind of, forewarning you for fender well issues. But Chargers probably wouldn't have a problem with them, especially with if you've got 11-inch wide wheel. That would probably be a great tire if you've got a Charger. Not so great if you've got a Challenger, because that's going to require some modifications. I'll put it to you like this. I still need to do more fender well modifications on the right side of my car with the 305 35s that I've got. I still get a little bit of rubbing every once in a while. But the feel of them, the feel of the Nitto is actually really good. They're stable up to well over 140, 150 miles an hour. I can tell you that for sure. And as far as wearability, you might see a little bit more wear out of the Nitto depending on how you drive your car. But the downside to them is, again, if this is a problem or if it isn't, they do run wide and they just don't hook as well. I can tell you with mine, it's really, really easy to haze the tires at, say 45 or 50 miles an hour, just kind of going through the gears, first, second, third, and just kind of go into the throttle real quick, and it will, especially on cool days, it will definitely haze those tires, and that's at about 50 or 55 miles an hour. So just something to think about with the Nittos. Probably something you're not having to worry about with the Mickey Thompsons. Now, that being said, the Nittos are really good in wet weather when they're new. But just like any other drag radial, they don't have anything for tread depth. And so after any real length of time of driving on them, they become basically useless in the wet. So when they're brand new, they're actually just like having a good set of summer tires on the back of your car. But as you wear them down, they do start to get significantly worse. So again, just something to keep in the back of your mind. At one point, I was thinking about busting out the Dremel and shaving the wear bars down. I mean, the wear bars are obnoxious. You still get a lot of tread depth. It's just the wear bars are so far up. It's just kind of silly. Anyway, something that you look at, you're going, what? Why is the tread? Why is the bar so? Anyway, you'll know it if you end up getting one. What I'm talking about. So yeah, Nittos, great for the street, great for long distance running. They're better than having a set of Pirellis on the back of the car. I'll definitely agree with that statement if someone were to tell me that, but compared to the Mickey Thompsons, they're just not quite as good. 1320J is in, and again, Gary, thank you very much, brother. I appreciate that a lot. Chuck saying, Gary Payne, cheers, bro, for sure. Ruth saying one of his dream cars is a C7 ZR1. Seems like the best Corvette made, in my opinion. Very probably, much so, the very best vet. Oh, Tux is in saying, hey, did you get to celebrate Christmas? I sure did, buddy. Thank you very much. Hope you did too. Gary's saying, thanks to you, Chuck. Absolutely, thanks to you. Cal's asking, can you go primaries mid-pipe, no cat back without sounding shrill? Primaries mid-pipe with no cat back. Well, sorta. Well, sorta. See, here's the thing. Anytime you run an open X pipe, it's going to sound a bit shrill. It's going to have a higher pitched kind of when I say flat, I don't mean it's as opposed to sharp tone. It's got a kind of a shrill, flat tone about it. If you could get away with it, you could go manifolds, cats, have your mid pipes. Well, I guess the mid pipes do go in the cat back and the X pipe is in the cat back. So you could probably do that with some turn downs and it would sound pretty good actually. But again, it would be really loud. I would suggest a set of race bullets at least. Get you a couple of foot long 3-inch race bullets or something like that and have those back there. And again, it's only just from the drone. I mean, it would just be really loud right up underneath you. Kamal saying, here's Kamal saying, now I understand very much. Appreciate it, B. Thank you so much. I have Super 44 Flowmasters and will definitely change to H-pipe on my next mod. I tell you what, so with my E63, when I did that had a big single middle muffler, and I did a mid muffler delete, and I just had an H pipe fabricated, and it was only about this wide, but it was a small H pipe that I had made for that thing. And if you go into my playlists, oh man, it might be under dynos. Anyway, there's a couple of videos of my old E63 floating around in there. Check those out. I mean, that's about what your car would sound like. It's the exhaust system's somewhat similar. But yeah, check that out. That car only had the rezos out back with a mid-muffler delete with an H-pipe, and it sounded freaking amazing. Marcy was asking, have you used Nitto Tri-5Rs in back and Tri-5 G2s up front? I'm thinking about going with this setup. I've run regular Tri-5s front and rear with Tri-5, the older school Tri-5Rs. It's a great setup. The G2s will not disappoint you at all. So, yeah, I say go for it. I mean, if that's the tire that you found that you like, you're not going to go wrong. That's a really good setup. In fact, I used to run Nittos on literally every vehicle in the fleet. The Lightning had them. The Vet had them. The Vipers all had them. Everything that I owned. I'm trying to think if there's anything that didn't have Nittos. Everything had Nittos on them. That's how much of a fan I was of the Tri-5 and the Tri-5R. So now I'm leaning a lot more towards the Mickey Thompsons only because it's really more of a look and a fitment. The Mickeys just fit a certain wheel size and a certain platform better than the Nittos do now. But they're great. As a tire, they're a extremely good tire, so you cannot go wrong with them. Oh, Gary's saying at Catalyst, I've been way over researched my exhaust setup. There's a calculator to get the best primary and merge collector size per motor size and also RPM. Gary's saying, sounds good, B. Thank you, Gary. Oh, Catalyst is talking to Gary, just at sound, yep. Marcia's even asking, even if Challenger's wide body needed to modify fender to accept Nitto 315, no, not at all. Not at all. No, there's a lot of room with the wide bodies. Oh, Gary's saying he's focused on power. Oh, Gary's saying, Mark saying, nope, they will fit. They definitely will fit. Saying, just check the inner fender well plastic. May need a little modification. Yeah. Oh, and then Kobe's saying, I've got 315s on his wide body and have no issue. More rocks being thrown, though, for real. 315s are like that freaking wide. Yeah, no, in fact, with the Demon, we had red eye wheels and 315s, I think, all the way around. No, 305s up front, 315s in the back. I mean, you wouldn't even have thought that there would have been an issue there, so. And there wasn't. Let's see. Marcio's hanging out with Gary. Scat Pack G. Got the flex. I like it. Ruf's asking, how are the NTO5Rs compared to the Mickey Thompson ET Street SSs? They're similar. I can tell you that with the Demon, we've run 137 60 foots with the NTO5Rs. Here's the thing, though. The NTO5R is really good. The ET Street SS, though, is really well tested. And without diving too deep into one versus another, I would tell you that they're both very good at the drag strip. You might not really even notice a big difference between the two. Where the NTO5 may have a little bit of an advantage would be in longevity. But I don't know of too many guys that hang on to the NTO5Rs. They'll typically switch to a 305, 45, 18 if they're running the Demon, and that'll be an ET Street R. So it's kind of funny. So I like the NTO5. I'm kind of bummed that they don't make a 305, 35, 20 in the NTO5R. I mean, it just seems like it would be a natural tire to make, and they don't make it. At least last time I checked, they didn't make it. So there's that. But I can tell you that, I mean, dude, I've run high nines with both tires. I've run mid nines with both tires, and I didn't treat them any differently. So NTO5 at about 19 PSI and a 305, 45, 18, a solid little burnout in a Demon will lift the front tires off the ground. So, I mean, it's a good little tire. I'm not going to lie. Or rather 315, sorry, 315 35, I think is what they make. But they're not, I just don't know that they're as good of a drag tire as the SS. We've got so many passes on the SS, I should say so many more passes on sets of SSs, that I can tell you that the SS in the 20s will manage cars that will run 990s fairly easily. And that's in a 20-inch wheel size. So if I were to pick between the two, I hate to say it, but I'd probably go with Mickey Thompson. I mean, if I was just pressed and said, you can only have one, probably go with the Mickey Thompsons. Just because I've got so much more experience with that tire. Catalyst is asking, what is the rarest optioned Challenger in existence? That would be a 0 option, 1-seat Demon. Would be one of them. The other one actually would be a 2020 triple nickel, I'm going off the top of my head here, but a 2020 triple nickel super stock would also probably be even rarer than, you know, like some of the one-off, like maybe a Plum Crazy or something like that, Demon. But you start getting into colors and things like that, it kind of skews things a little bit. But I would say a base model triple nickel, because if I remember correctly, triple nickel was the least produced color. I have to go back and look. But it would be one of the 2020 super stocks in triple nickel. I'm almost positive about that. And a lot of that has to do with the chip shortage. Oh, Cody's saying he went from the NT05s to the NT ET Street R. Yeah, that's what most guys end up doing. I mean, they'll go, okay, well, NT05 is good, but you can go to the ET Street R and say, wait, pick up a little bit of traction and consistency. Or you can even go down to the DBR and shave a little bit more weight and maybe pick up a little bit more consistency with, you know, funky track conditions and things like that, which is where the Hoosier does a really good job. Oh, Kobe's saying 140, 60 foot. Yeah, I mean, that's real common with those tires and that setup. I mean, like I say, we've, you know, obviously we kind of get a little bit of the cheat code being down here in, you know, at HRP, but we have, when the track prep's good and we've got some sub-zero DA, it's not at all uncommon to see some of the, a little bit more sorted Demons and Red Eyes cut deep 140, 130, 60 foots. Oh, Catalyst is saying apparently Atturo now has a drag radial. Has anybody tried it? No. But best believe that I will be more than happy to, because I love Atturo tires. Guys, as y'all know, I've got a set of Atturo AZ850s on the front of my car. And I will tell you this beyond a shadow of a doubt. I know guys that have run Atturo AZ850s all the way around their cars that have run these tires to speeds that you would not freaking believe. Atturo AZ850, nice and solid, very stable, no issues, no problems whatsoever. Dude, if Atturo's making a drag radial and they make one in a 305 3520, I will order a set tonight. I kid you not. That's how serious I am. And just how much I like the Atturo tires. And I like them because, number one, they're a freaking good tire. But number two, if that is the case, and I don't have any way to get online right now, but if that is the case, like I say, if they're in that size, I will order a set tonight. I absolutely am blown away by some of the stuff that I've heard about guys doing with a Atturo tire. So you gotta understand, okay, for a while, Atturo AZ850 was the tire that you went to for any of the Mopar guys. All the Scat Packs, all the SRT guys, 392 guys were running Atturos. And the reason why you ran Atturos is because you could fry them to the cords and they didn't cost anything to replace. And so I had bought a set. A buddy of mine and I split a set of wheels. We both had SRTs, so we had the black chrome wheels, and the guy had literally just bought these tires and put them on the rims, and then decided he wanted to go a different direction, so he sold them, and so we split the two, and we were going to have the 305 drag radials on the backs of another set of wheels and just have these as dailies, or, you know, as street wheels. Those same tires are on the front of my car today. And let me tell you something, they have seen, well, they've been part of all of my testing runs. So if I've ever come back and said that I did high load testing with the air intake, or with the fuel pump, or with fuel quality, or with just a general tune thing. Whatever I was doing, the Atturo AZ850 has been along literally for the ride from literally the beginning of all of this. So they wear like freaking steel when you put them on the front of the car. They handle extremely well. One of the things about the Atturo, I don't know how I got just so geeked up about Atturo AZ850 tires. The funny thing about Atturo AZ850s is that they're not really known for their straight line traction, but they are awesome when it comes to lateral traction. Lateral acceleration and lateral grip, I should say, is actually really kind of good with the Atturo AZ850. And I mean, I've never been left wishing I had another tire. Just playing around hitting on ramps and off ramps aggressively. I've never wished I had a different tire running the Atturos. So anyway, again, if they make one, if it's in that size, I kid you not, I will order a set and test them. Tux is asking, have you ever tried, or have you ever heard of the Tesla Cybertruck? Yep. Do you think it's outstanding or pretty much unlovely because of the body design? It's a look only a mother could love. But I will tell you, it is not going to be produced anytime soon, but it's definitely different. It's definitely different and fast. Michael's saying the Tesla Cybertruck looks like an updated DeLorean. It's funny because when I first saw it, I was like, damn, that thing looks like literally a yoked up DeLorean. Like somebody just roided up a DeLorean and sent it out into the world. That's what a Cybertruck looks like. Catalyst is checking in saying, I just checked. Atturo in early 2022 will produce a drag tire with a 305 option. Man, if it's a 305, 35, 20, I would probably have to get a set just to try them out. I mean, dude, they can't be bad. And I mean, hell, I'm going to be in the market for a set anyway. If they spec out, well, like I say, I can't see them being a bad tire. It'd be really cool if they made the 305. See, here's the thing though. It would be really cool if they made the tire the same height as the 275/40. That would be really ideal because that's what Mickey Thompson did with the 305/35 ET Street SS. It's actually not a 305/35. That tire, if you look at the carcass width, is really more like a 295 or 337. It fits a 10.5 inch wide wheel, absolutely perfect and flush. Works perfectly for the Hellcats. Like that tire was, I mean, you don't like to say it like this, but it was designed for the Hellcat. Like whoever put that tire together had to have owned a Hellcat. Kobe saying, I hope grip for cheap. I'll tell you what, here's how I envision the Atturo drag radial if they do what I think they're going to do with it. It will be a drag radial, kind of like the the name just blows. I just said it a minute ago. Manufactured for the drag radial for the 1320s. Said the name a million times and now I'm talking about something else, and it's that thing where a word takes the place of another word, like it transfixes itself. That's what's going on here. Anyway, was it Alteza? Anyway, whatever that brand is, I see them kind of like that. Not really top of the food chain in terms of traction, but really good for guys that are running more power and need a tire that they can use as a daily that doesn't break the bank the way that some of these other tires have. Like I say, man, I love me some Atturo AZ850s. If it fits a 10.5 inch wide wheel the way that these Atturos do, The way the Atturo fits a 9.5-inch wide wheel, that would be sick to death. So yeah, count me in on that. Plus, you know they're not going to be all that expensive. Oh, Tux is liking that Tesla truck. You know, I mean, the one thing that you've got to do with an electric truck, and this is something that Ford is going to have some teething problems, I'm afraid. In Stellantis, the STLA truck platform, you'll see that coming soon enough as well. Again, all electric truck platform. Where you might start seeing some issues is with towing. But if you look at the statistics of how most guys use their trucks for towing, this is one of those I have range anxiety type things. Well, what about if I'm towing my boat? And look, most guys are towing their boat no more than 45 minutes in one direction to get to the lake or the ocean or whatever it is that they're going to. But from their house to the boat ramp is rarely more than an hour. And any of these electric trucks will drag 7,000 pounds for an hour there and an hour back. That isn't going to be a problem. Plus, they're all-wheel drive, which means that all the boat ramp shenanigans are presumably not going to be a... Nexon, thank you, Catalyst. God, my brain just melted for a minute. But, you know, at least in that respect, it'll be a lot easier to drag the thing in and out of the water. Although, electricity, salt water, I have my own opinions about that. But I'm sure they'll figure out a way to keep it from, you know, electrocuting everybody. So the Nexons, so the Nexons... Over here talking about Atturos, and the word just like completely transfixed the word Nexon out of my brain for a minute. The Nexons are actually pretty good in the environment that they're in. In other words, I wouldn't expect a set of Nexons to hook like a set of Mickey Thompson ET Street SS's. It's just not going to work like that. But for the NA guys, the Nexon is a good option. It's better, again, than a normal summer tire. When you start messing with drag radials, the big issue that you're going to run into is, realistically, what are you trying to do with the drag radial on the street? None of them are going to dead hook. ET Street R won't dead hook. DBRs have a real hard time hooking, although I have run 1050s and 1060s on the street with no prep, no juice, no burnout, no nothing with DBRs. But it takes a lot of life out of them when you do that. So, what do you really expect in these tires to do? They are traction enhanced tires, fair weather only, meaning no rain, temperatures 50 degrees and up. They will allow for better traction than a summer tire at the compromise of more wear, but they're not going to cause the car to dead hook. What you're hoping is that from a 60 roll, when you mat the throttle, it doesn't spin the tires. As long as it does that, it's a success. Are they stable at 130? Are they stable at 140, 50, 60, 70? That's a number that you'll have to decide is high enough. I can tell you the fronts are stable to 150. Very stable. Canada guys in. What's up, man? Saying, how's it going, bro? I hope you had a good holiday. You too, my brother. Recently put the 6.1 away for the winter. Planning on ordering some NT Tri-5 G2s for it. Very nice. You'll like the tires. They're a good tire. Kobe saying, why do I see drag racers stretching 275/15 on a 10.5-inch rim? I don't know why you would do that. That's a bad idea. Not a good idea. Who would do that? Am I missing something? I wouldn't do that. 275/15. So 275, so it's probably a 275/60/15. But even then, on a 10.5-inch wide wheel, I mean, you normally see, unless there's an issue with fender well clearance or something like that, normally you wouldn't see that. You'd see a 275-something/15 on a 9.5-inch wide wheel. Oh, Tux is saying, oh, towing for the truck should be a problem. No, it won't be a problem. For the vast majority of what guys will be using that vehicle for, the towing part of the list of things that truck needs to do is not at all going to be a problem. Destroyer, thank you very much, brother. Appreciate the contribution to the cause, saying cheers to the new year, race fuel fun 2022. I like it. So coming into this year, the weather has been nutty, and don't really know what Mopar-mageddon weather is going to look like. We're about a week and a half out, give or take. We might have some cool weather blow through, but that's kind of a hope and a dream. But been driving the car quite a bit as just an automobile, which has been a lot of fun, actually. Not doing any real testing, not messing with data logging, not really doing much of anything other than just getting in the thing and, having fun with it. And the car really has taken on a whole new complexion. I can tell you that the race gas blend, running any Sunoco, what I use for my trash can over here, my Sunoco 260 GT, or any Boostain or anything like that, in fuel quality testing, fuel quality is looking good. I may still run a little bit of a mix at the at Mopar-mageddon, mainly because the fuel quality checks that I've done have been a little bit mixed in their consistency, I guess is the best way to put it. But as long as I'm getting the fuel from the same place every time, I'm pretty safe. But I don't know. That can of Boostain, which is right there, I think. Yeah. Right there by the Hercules drill. Harbor Freight, baby. Actually, you know what's funny? So I put Boostain in pretty much everything that sits for any length of time before I get a chance to drive it. So the Mustang has Boostain, the truck gets Boostain, the Camaro gets Boostain. Mainly because it's kind of a fuel stabilizer, but it's also an octane maintainer. So far as I can tell, in other words, I can go an amount of time without driving the car or truck or whatever, getting the thing and driving, it drives like normal or without any pinging or anything like that. So, and typically I'll put 2 to 3 ounces in with half a tank of gas, which in this case is usually like 7 gallons or so. But I've been using it more like a fuel stabilizer than anything else. But thank you very much. I appreciate it. That will absolutely go to the next can, for sure. Destroyer 1320 saying, thank you very much, saying salute Professor Mason. Salute amigo. Saying wish you a happy new year. Same to you. It can tow at F-150. I'm like, how? Lots of torque, brother. Lots of torque. Oh, Destroyer saying my Nexans work great for a stock set for sure. Yeah, I loved them. So, I mean, like I say, we had a lot of fun with them. And, I mean, dude, it is what it is. Look, I mean, you can only expect so much out of a street tread pattern tire on the street, especially at those power levels. You got to remember that these cars are making a ton of power. 392s, with a 309 gear back there, it's pretty stout out of the hole with the transmission ratios that it's got, and it's asking a lot of those tires to get it to hook. They seem to do pretty well. At least we had a lot of fun with them with Ray's car for sure. Chuck is checking out saying, all right, Night, I'll check y'all on the next one. For sure, brother. And again, Destroyer, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. It will be very well used. No doubt about that. Rift is asking, what do you suggest when it comes to tires for an NA car like a 392 compared to a forced induction car like a Hellcat, for example, when it comes to around town? I don't have a difference with what tires I recommend. I recommend a drag radial for the rear of both cars. I mean, they're both traction limited down low. The only difference is for how long, and believe me when I tell you, you kill traction control in anything with a 392 and mat the throttle, you will be smoking the tires until you take your foot off the gas. I mean, it's pretty much the same. I have always, without fail, run drag radials on the back of my 392 Shalandra. Always had drag radials, whether they were the stock size with the Mickey Thompson ET Street SS, which worked very well, or they were the 305/35 Nittos. I would still run drag radials on both cars. The main difference, though, is to know that the tire's lifespan is going to be limited. So if you're out beating on the thing, it's going to adversely affect the life cycle of that tire, in that it's just going to make its life a lot shorter. As far as actual street tires, like non-drag radials on the backs of those cars, I would be lying to you if I told you that there was one that I preferred over another. Again, for the 392 guys, you've got a little bit more latitude because of the power difference. In other words, I'm not worried about from a dig because both cars will just destroy a set of tires. But this is really more from like a 40 mile an hour hit. A set of Atturo AZ850s, for example, is a great tire to put on the back of a 392 car. If you've got a Scatty, it works even better because you go 275 40s in the back, and it works out great in terms of height, width. They look the part, and you can go watt at 40, 50 miles an hour, and they'll still basically hook. I mean, they're still a good tire, and you can go play with them, cook them down to the cords, and then get another set, and they're pretty inexpensive by comparison. Problem with the Hellcat is that if you're out playing around with the Hellcat, you're not gonna hook at those speeds. It's still gonna spin, and I mean, you should have just spent the extra money and put a set of radials on the back of it to begin with. So if it's a daily, and you're gonna be running the car in inclement weather, none of the tires are really gonna be awesome in terms of being able to hook up. Some guys like the Firestone Indies. Other guys swear by the Pirelli summer tires. I kind of fall under the camp of tires are a wear item, and none of them hook unless you've got a drag pack sitting back there. And even then, it's still a bit of an ask to get that to hook up the way that you would hope that it would. You'll still have to employ quite a bit of throttle control. Let's just put it that way. So if you're going to fry the tires anyway, get a set of tires that are going to be cheap. If you got an NA car, go for the Atturos. Just because they're a known factor, they work well. A lot of guys really like those tires a lot. I'm one of them, as a matter of fact. If you've got a Hellcat, supercharged, something like that, especially when we're talking about something that is, you're just trying to drive the thing like a normal car, the Nexans would be fine for a Hellcat. The Tri-5 R2 is a good one. That's what I'm running on the back of mine right now. Mickey Thompson makes a great tire as well. But just Again, don't expect those types of tires to perform extremely well in wet weather. And also remember that your lifespan of that tire is going to go down, especially if you're hammering on the car quite a bit. So again, a lot of it has to do with how you drive the car. And you know, if the car is, like, say for example, if you've got a car, a lot of power, but you're making a lot of power with a centrifugal supercharger, that's not going to change my idea of what kind of tire you need to have. The coefficient of friction is what it is, and that's going to be based around the kind of power that you're making. You know, I would say that realistically at about the 500 horsepower to the rear wheel mark anyway, it isn't going to matter. None of them are going to hook up the way that you would hope that they would. But I've had really good luck with the Nitto Tri-5 R2. I did a 4-part test with those, and I think all that's still up under my product section in the playlist. You'll see me driving it in wet weather. I do some hits from various miles per hour, 60, 40, 50, something like that. Anyway, in the car, those tires do just fine with that car. So, and long and short of it, with my car, it'll haze the tires from anything other than about a 60 hit. A little bit at 50, but definitely none at 60 that I could feel in the conditions that I was running the car. And those tires, when they were new, did really well in the wet. With a set of Atturos on the back of the car, it would probably fry the tires even at 60 or 70 miles an hour. Rich say, now that my Hellcat is around 900 wheel, I can't seem to hook even with my ET Street R 17, 315. Yeah, 315/50s are still gonna, it's still gonna be tough, man. See, this is kind of the conundrum that you get into once you start throwing power at these things. You find, as you already have, that it just won't hook. And it won't hook in situations where you would kind of expect it to hook, like 50, 60 miles an hour. You know, what used to hook at 700 wheel horsepower now doesn't want to hook at all. And believe me, I've lived through it. And I was the guy doing load testing with those cars. Let me tell you how that worked out. So you put together a combination that is basically going to overpower whatever tires are on the back of it. And then you've got to hook up everything to the car and get proper data logs with this thing. And it's like, okay, well, now everything is going to be gearing based. So, you know, your generic Bravo package with a 309 gear, you would have to start street load testing in 5th gear, just like you would a dyno hit. And roll into the throttle, look, everything cool, roll into the throttle. And it was one of those funny things where, you know, you couldn't just map the throttle. It was, you know, especially if it was cold outside, you'd still kind of get a little bit of a wiggle, and you just kind of, you already know, I mean, you just get used to the fact that things are not exactly as glued to terra firma as you would like for it to be. Anyway, long story short, yeah, doing those types of tests are kind of fun, because when you got to run something up to 150, 160 miles an hour, just because it won't hook in 4th gear, that's when things are, yeah. But I know exactly what you're dealing with. Oh, Destroyer saying the boost stand was a noticeable difference when running the Arizona 91 octane. Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I noticed with it is, again, I primarily now just use it as a fuel stabilizer, but again, more to the point, an octane maintainer. Mustang sat for probably the longest without running. Put some butane in it, went to the gas station, put some gas in it, and I mean, the car runs like it, I mean, it really likes, it's running like the gas is way fresher than what it is in that tank. Rip to say, even at 60 mile an hour pulls, yeah, that's going to be, at that kind of power level, traction becomes a very difficult commodity to come by. But really, more to the point, it's, be careful with that power level, even with the ET Street R's on the back of the car. it's one of those things where now you have to have that tire on the back of the car. Any other tire back there, the car will want to skate around. So just know that coming into it. Luckily, you've got a platform that is very stable. So, I mean, you know, everybody knows the story about me and Racer X's car where, you know, I was taking excessive up to Dallas for him and said, well, you know, how is it stability wise? And so I roll into the throttle and it's, this is a very short version of what happened. And this is even with a couple of jerry cans full of E85 in the back and everything else. The car is basically hazing the tires through 130, 140 miles an hour. And it's like, I mean, it's stable just like all the rest of them. It runs great. So, but again, it's a situation where traction doesn't exist anymore. It's one of those things where you have to be extremely aware of everything when you're making that kind of power. But more to the point, it's when you're making that kind of power, the way that Hellcats make that kind of power. The weird thing is that other cars, say an LS platform, you've got a run-of-the-mill, I say run-of-the-mill, it's kind of, I don't mean to say it like that, but LS3 platform, where you've got FAST manifold, you've got a 240, 250 cam in the thing, and a F1 supercharger makes about 850, 900 to the wheel. It's the same kind of idea. But it's a ever increasing boost curve, and it doesn't hit like a Hellcat. You just go watt with a Hellcat, and it just nails the whole curve with this huge torque bubble right there on the hit. It's just and it's all there. Where you don't get that with other platforms, and that creates problems because you go to hit the throttle on a roll and it just lights up the tires. Whereas the other cars, they're actually able to use the horsepower that they're generating because it's just not as violent. The way that the Hellcats hit is really, really hard by comparison with a lot of these other cars. So, anyway, I digress. It's definitely something when you're trying to pick tires for these cars, you got to be real careful because, you know, a lot of guys get the tires, they run them around on a drag pack for a long time. They live in cold areas. We were just talking about that earlier. And, you know, then they start having issues with their radials, and now their radials don't hook as well, or the life of the thing just goes away really fast. One of the things I'll say that I've noticed, you know, we're talking about tires here. One of the things I'll say that I've noticed about the ET Street R's is that once they start getting down to right at the wear bars, look, I don't know this to be a fact, and it could be a function of just the timeline. You've been doing burnouts and whatever with them, but what I've found with those tires is that when they get to about that level, right when you start cutting into the wear bars, it seems like the compound changes and it just gets harder. They're kind of weird. Anyway, I've noticed this. Other guys have noticed this with ET Street R's, and they just get a little bit unpredictable in terms of traction at the drag strip. And whereas the Hoosiers never did that. The DBRs were always real consistent, like all the way down to the freaking cords on those things. So, anyway. Canada's saying, happy to say I finally have my chromed OEM Demon wheels in possession. I know not a lot of people are a fan, but I did get the flare kit for the 6.1. Cool. And I think the chrome and B5 look good together. That ought to be a pretty color combination. I say my buddy recently got his 06 Daytona Charger finished. 6.5 striker still needs fine tuning, but it is somewhere in the 430 to 450 wheel horsepower range. Not bad. Good place to start. Ken is saying Marspeed on YouTube does a lot of Mopar content. Yes, he does. Ken is saying we're planning on hitting the track once spring hits. Gonna be a fun time. Absolutely, it will be. Yeah, we're square in the middle of spring right now. Here, coming up on January. It's just kind of funny to me. This has been like a weird record year with high temperatures and all that, and a lot of us are going, is it ever going to be winter? We've had a few cool days, but hey, as long as it stays dry, I'm a happy camper. But, well, guys, hopefully I was able to answer some questions for you guys. Had a lot of fun with this one tonight. Got a chance to talk about primary length and primary diameters, which is stuff that we don't get a chance to get into too much, but it does make a big difference. But again, if you guys are running supercharged combinations, a lot of that kind of gets thrown out of the window because you have that big, again, scavenger pump sitting either right on top of or bolted right in front of your engine. Turbos, definitely a big difference. By the way, I also wanted to mention with turbos, not sure if I mentioned this already, but when it comes to mufflers with turbos, for any of you guys that are thinking about or have turbo combinations or whatever, chambered mufflers are almost always a no-go with turbos. And maybe I forgot to mention that earlier. If you have a turbo combination, you definitely need to make sure you have a flow-through exhaust like a MagnaFlow or something along those lines. So, but I wanted to make sure I got to that. I thought about that while I was chatting earlier when I was forgetting Nexon. Anyway, maybe that's the other thing that screwed up my head. But that was the other point that I wanted to make too is the NA guys, all of that makes a big difference. Primary length, all that, but just remember you can only work within the confines of your platform. So, you know, you're still going to have under chassis headers. Those things are going to have to move around. So don't get caught up in primary length and diameters and things like that. It's whatever will work in the car works in the car. Some have more room than others. That's just how it is. Canada guys saying, oh, I feel you, barely any snow here. Yeah, it's crazy. But with that, guys, I got to wrap it up because I, too, have got to be up crazy early in the morning. But I want to thank each and every one of you guys for hanging out. Thank you all for the contributions to the cause. Absolutely, truly appreciate that more than you guys know. I would not do this without you guys. Love each and every one of y'all. Remember, if you're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep her shiny side up. Ray, miss you, love you, brother. And with that, that is a wrap. Catch you on the next one. And Happy New Year. We'll see you on the next one coming up. Adios.